It's not it's just straight from here. Okay. All right. Okay. I think this is a way of. Steph, can you hear me?
Good morning. Sorry for that delay. We were having some technical difficulties. I'm Stephanie Marsh, Chief Communications Officer for the City of Akron. We have with us Chief Mylett and Akron Mayor Dan Horrigan. For members of the media, if you're on here, if you could please put any questions that you might have in the Q&A section. We'll get to those at the end. I realize that some of the names on here might not be accurate. So that is Chief Mylett and not Lieutenant Miller from Akron Police. Mayor, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you and good morning. I want to start with a couple of talking points first that we will announce and then take some questions at the end. First, the curfew in downtown Akron will be moved to 11 p.m. tonight, and it will be in place from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. And we appreciate all those who have been able to peacefully demonstrate and have no serious safety concerns that would justify having an earlier curfew at this time. In moving the curfew back several hours, we're also helping to help out our downtown businesses and also who have struggled a little bit closing on the early times with our downtown residents as well. Tonight, Akron City Council will be submitting a resolution to declare Wednesday, July 13th as a citywide day of mourning as the Walker family holds a memorial service for Jayland Walker. And on a note of that, we will not be holding this press briefing on Wednesday in order to respect the family. And we in no way want to distract from the importance of that day for the community and for the family. And over the weekend, Chief Mylett, Marco Somerville, and I were meeting with a number of community members, including some faith leaders. And I want to publicly thank them not only for their support and not necessarily for me, but for the city, their guidance and also their very strong feedback. To me, I think the only way this community can heal is together, is by moving forward, by having some of those really necessary hard conversations that necessitate hard change. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. And everybody, I'm going to apologize up front because I am having some technical difficulties. So I first want to echo Mayor Horrigan's comments, thanking all of the pastors in the community for their response to our requests. As an update on demonstrations, you know, I know there have been a lot of concerns about the community, about a moving caravan of cars. And what I want to say is that so long as the participants are nonviolent, we are going to give them space. They have committed to us that they're not going to engage in violence. And everybody does have a constitutional right to protest and demonstrate. And folks, again, I'm sorry, I'm having some really serious technical difficulties because I'm getting a lot of voices coming onto this thing. So if I'm distracted, that's why. I do want to touch on some misinformation that's gone out into the public about our officers. There's misinformation that the officers who were involved in the shooting are currently on duty. That's not true. They've all been placed on administrative leave. Additionally, there's misinformation going out into the public about officers who have been accused of being involved in the shooting or in other events. When we put out misinformation, that actually tends to increase the level of tension. And I'm asking the public to please be mindful of that. Misinformation doesn't help the situation at all. BCI is doing their investigation, and we will do an internal investigation. At the conclusion of that, all information will be shared. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Stephanie. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to correct these technical issues. So.
Thanks, Chief. So we'll go ahead and start with some questions then from media. This first one is going to be from David Nethers. He says, Jayland Walker's family will hold a press conference this afternoon addressing aggressive and violent tactics being used by police against demonstrators and an end to the city's effort to blame Jayland for the horrific and unjustified shooting that took his life. And third, calling for all curfews to be lifted. Mayor, could we start with you? If you could address these statements that we're expecting from the Walker family this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Let me go to number 2 first. And in none of these is there any intent to shift blame or to do anything like that. So if that is coming across from a perspective to be able to do this, I sincerely apologize on behalf of the city to any, if they're feeling we're trying to blame it. That's not the case at all. I know there are a number of questions within there. I think I addressed the curfew part. We talked about the peaceful demonstration, which most have been, but I can tell you that there has been property damage. There has been a roving caravan that does cause public safety concerns. There has been threats against myself, my family, and my home. Those are not going to be tolerated. I have no problem with a peaceful demonstration. And to be able to talk about those things, we have reached out to a number of groups in talking with the Department of Justice, which is looking to facilitate a number of those things, and have always been ready and willing to meet to have those discussions too. So I hope I answered all three there, Dave. We'll kind of go from there.
Chief, did you want to add anything to that?
There's never been any intention or at all to vilify Jalen Walker. The man lost his life. The young man lost his life. We are very expressed tremendous condolences for the family and such, but we had a duty and responsibility to get information out into the public's hands on what happened. We tried to do so respectfully, and I think that information has been shared, but never to vilify Jalen Walker.
Thanks, Chief. Our next question is from Athena Jones. She asked, can you give us an update on gun violence and shootings in the city since Walker was killed? Can you share the numbers regarding shootings this year so far compared to years past? And give us a sense of how serious or concerning gun violence is there this summer? How are police changing their approach, if they are? This is Athena Jones from CNN. Chief, we'll start with you.
So I don't have the data in front of me, but we can certainly get it. Gun violence is a challenge in our city, as it is with many communities around the country. The proliferation of firearms, there seems to be a lack of conflict resolution skills, and it's leading to many young people losing their lives. And again, Stephanie, I apologize. I'm not sure I heard the full question. But Mayor, if you want to weigh in as well.
Yeah, Athena, I know the last couple of years, and I'll speak generally to trends that it's still gun violence is still a significant concern for cities across the country, and how we police that and how we do get guns off the streets. I know this. The city and city council have made a significant investment into youth opportunity, and it deflects away from that, but trying to change the narrative around the access to guns, and certainly that will be part of the conversation going forward about how we reduce access to guns and do get guns off the streets. Thanks.
Thanks. Our next question then is from Jim McKinnon. This one's for you, Mayor. He asked, did the city get the 48-hour break you and others asked for?
There are going to be, and I said this even we were talking, Jim, it doesn't need to be 48 hours. It could be 72, 100. It is that I know there's a level of tension out there, which we certainly recognize, but also have supported those efforts for people to be able to demonstrate and to let us know, which we've always been willing to listen. So certainly willing to do anything to reduce those tensions, I think, across the community. And like I said, I think it does involve some hard conversations on both sides, and willing to meet to talk about those. It didn't necessarily want to start a standard of saying, hey, just 48 hours. This community does need to heal. And I'm talking across the community. And certainly it's part of our jobs to be able to help be part of that conversation, along with a number of community organizations, which include pastors and elected representatives. And certainly looking forward to those conversations.
Thanks, Mayor. So our next question is from Bob Jones, and he said, can you talk about the decision to not release the officers' names, the officers involved in the Walker shooting? Mayor, we'll start with you, and then we can go over to Chief.
Yeah, it has been a longstanding policy of not releasing names, but relevant information to be able to do that. And I think we've been consistent with that for a while.
So again, we are following our policies and procedures. Look, the challenge right now is there have been bounties placed on police officers' heads. The level of aggression towards police officers across the board, but specifically the officers that were involved in the shooting, we have a duty to to protect the community, to serve the community, but we also have a duty and responsibility to protect our officers and their families. And we're not going to release the names. They will be released at the conclusion of the investigation by the Attorney General and after the grand jury has heard the case. But until then, out of an abundant caution for the officer's safety, we're not going to do that. In fact, Stephanie, we've had people threaten officers and identify officers with misinformation who weren't even there. And so you can, again, try and put yourself in their position and their families. I know it's difficult. That's a large ask, but we're not going to release the names.
Yeah, and just to follow up a little bit on that, Bob, in saying, in releasing some of the information about the threats on officers and others, this is not to say who is doing that. This is not saying the people that are demonstrating here and have, the concerns about the way we police, what we operate as a city, what we are funding. It's not to say that that group or this group is doing that, but those threats are out there and they are real. And we're trying to, I think, provide that it's a balance of being transparent, but also around public safety too.
Thanks. Our next question is from Jennifer Kahn. She says the Freedom Bloc and other groups recently issued demands of the city. The groups say they won't end protests until the demands are met. What is the city's response to these demands? And do you have ongoing dialogue with any of these groups? Thanks.
Yeah. First, I had received Freedom Bloc's certified letter over the weekend and have prepared a response. I'm inaccurate whether it's gone out just yet. But part of that is that I am certainly willing to meet with any group to talk about some of their concerns, but not going to unilaterally agree to demands before a meeting. So we're working really closely with the Department of Justice to be able to help facilitate that meeting, and certainly looking forward to that as we move forward.
Absolutely. I just also wanted to give a chance. So Deputy Mayor Marco Somerville is also on this webinar. Apologize for the lateness. There was a little bit of technical difficulties. Marco, did you want to talk about any involvement you've had with community conversations in the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, we've had a number of conversations with a variety of people, people in the faith-based community as well as community people. Had been in close contact with the DOJ. We had some great conversations with the chief and Mike Miller on Saturday at one of the local churches. And I feel that we have made ourselves available and we're asking all those tough questions that we have to answer.
Thanks, Marco. Our next question is from Sam Allard from Cleveland Scene. Sam asks, how many arrests have been made after the initial night of demonstrations and the first 49 arrests? Chief, I'll let you handle that one if you have the numbers.
So I don't have the exact number, but I believe it was 7 the following night, or in the days or after the Sunday event. Over the last several days, I don't think we've made any arrests.
And we can certainly follow back up with the most accurate information just so you have it to be able to publish.
Yes.
Absolutely. This is another one from Jim McKinnon, and he asked, what changes have been made to police policies or practices following the Walker shooting and protests?
I think, and I know there's some concern about being able to address what currently will be changed. I know there's a number of conversations, as I said in the initial press conference from a Sunday ago, about all of the questions that I know that I have. But to me, and I'll let Chief weigh in too, those could be impactful to an ongoing independent investigation about what they may be. And so it's not that we're not having those conversations, and it's not like we're not asking other groups to help us weigh in on some of those on those policies and procedures, but to comment further, I think would jeopardize or at least put into question whether that investigation as we go forward with it too. But I'll let Chief kind of weigh in on that part too.
I think you answered the question really well, Mayor. We're always looking at our policies. We are looking to best practices as established by the International Associations of Chiefs of Police, the Police Executive Research Forum, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. We are constantly looking at our policies, and we'll continue to do that. We're going to examine what happened here, and if there's adjustments that need to be made, we'll make them. But right now, we are focused on getting these investigations conducted and completed.
Thanks. We'll do two more questions. The first one's going to be from Athena Jones from CNN. She says, can you tell us more about the DOJ's involvement in this case at this point?
Thank you, Athena. They approached us early on, their community resources division, about helping bridge some of the divide in the communication between groups that have questions about city government, policing procedures, all of that, as we've seen. And so they've been, I think, a very valued and trusted source on the ground to be able to help facilitate some of those conversations. There was a team here, and then they rotated out with another team, and they plan on being here for a while. We certainly appreciate all of the help they've been able to provide. Sometimes, and I even know this, being part of those conversations, we sometimes talk past each other, and I'll take blame for that also, as we come up with policies and procedures to be able to do that, but certainly willing to have those conversations with those groups, under an auspice of the DOJ, so they can help facilitate some understanding at a table, so we can continue to move forward. Good question.
Thanks, Mayor. So this will be our last question. For any questions we didn't get to in the chat, I will follow up, or Lieutenant Miller, who is the Akron Police PIO, will follow up with you individually. And again, we're going to host these daily except for this Wednesday. So please feel free to jump back on. We'll work through some of the tech issues that we had this morning. Apologies for that. So the last question is from Isabel Lawrence from 3 News in Cleveland. She says, over the weekend, Chief Mylett released a statement about FBI information regarding violent extremists coming to Akron. What is the latest update on these supposed violent extremists coming into the Akron area? Chief, I'll let you go with that one.
So the update, excuse me, I don't have an update from the FBI. The threats are still out there. And it's not only here in Akron, it's across the country. And we are working closely with the FBI, and they are keeping us informed. The threats still exist and they're credible. And we need to take precautions, not only as a police department, but as a community during, demonstrations. And again, folks, I apologize because I'm getting a lot of feedback and catch up from, I'm hearing the mayor's answer from 3 minutes ago as I'm trying to respond to this. So we will get past these technical issues and by tomorrow.
All right, well, listen, thank you. I appreciate everybody being able to join today. Obviously, we will see you tomorrow if you join back in. What I want to say, too, is that if a question didn't have the right information yet because we need to do a follow-up, please submit that to either Mike or Stephanie, or Lieutenant Miller or Stephanie, so we can get the most accurate information. We'll continue to do these briefings daily for the foreseeable future. We are committed to relaying the most timely, and I think the most importantly, the accurate information to both the press and the public. And apologies for the slight delay and some of the name misplacement on there, but